Hey there, I'm Jeff Elkins, and this is the Dialogue Doctor Podcast. Today on the podcast, publishing expert and founder of Bold Story Press, Emily Barrosse, comes to answer all your publishing questions.
Mr. Jeff, is she really going to answer all of my publishing questions?
Yes, she is. She will answer all of your publishing questions as long as all of your publishing questions fall within these 7 questions that she and I discussed. As long as they fall within those 7 questions, all of your publishing questions will be answered. So let's keep the questions in the scope of those 7, and then we'll be good to go. Hey, everybody. I'm just joking around. Welcome to the podcast. It is fantastic to have you here. Before we kick off a couple matters of business, first matter of business, Laura and JP and I all have open coaching slots right now. So it's not something that I talk about a lot because a lot of times our coaching slots are full, but right now they are open. So we've got, we can do different types of coaching. One type of coaching is you give us 2,000 words, we give you edits, and then we sit down and we talk about what we saw in the piece. That's a great way, like if you want to work on a character voice that you're struggling with, or if you want to work on some dialogue, or if you have like a really tough scene that's not working, that's a good way to work on that scene. We also do I also will do monthly coaching. So if you want to do hey, I'd love to book 4 weeks in a row, I will look at 3,000 to 6,000 words a week. And then for 4 weeks, we will work through those 3,000 to 6,000 words a week. That's another good way. It's a good way to get a good chunk of your book done. So if you're in the messy middle, you're I don't know what I'm doing, then let's look at it together. Let's go. And finally, I don't know if JP and Laura have room for this, but I have room for a full manuscript right now. So if somebody's looking to get their manuscript developmental edited, I'm here for that. We will meet. Before I start, we will talk about, hey, what are you hoping to get out of this? What do you want the tone to be? Who do you want the characters to be? What are your ambitions? And then, because I'm not going to start editing unless I know what you want. And then once I know what you want, I will read the first half. We'll meet in the middle, talk about what I've seen, see if you want me to keep going, and then I will work on the second half if you do. So all that to say, I'm open for clients right now. So if you need a strong editor or coach, come to dialoguedoctor.com and sign up there. The community is also open. It's dialoguedoctor.com. Click on the community button in the website. Oh, for the editing and coaching, you go to the coaching button in the website, dialoguedoctor.com/coaching, or just go to the menu and hit coaching. And then for the community, it's the community button in the menu. You go to patreon.com/Jeff Elkins. I love our Patreon community. It's amazing. And that $5 a month really helps keep this show going. So it's part of how I pay for this show. So if you want to jump in on that, I would greatly appreciate it. Again, dialoguedoctor.com/community. We have a great time together. Okay, so let's talk personal update, I guess. We can do personal update. It's been a really neat weekend. I'm recording this on Sunday before the podcast drops on Monday. And I've had 3 children in Tijuana, Mexico. I call them children, but one of them's 20, one of them's 18, and one of them is almost 16. They were in Tijuana, and they were there with an organization that builds houses for families that can't afford housing. And I was really proud of them. They worked really hard for a week. They built 3 houses with the crew of people they were with. It was an amazing experience for them. It's the second time 2 of them have gone. And I just love that they were willing to give up a week of their summer to go and help other people. It was really beautiful. I'm really proud of them. And I just got to say, this is for all you parents out there. If you're writing and you're a parent, this is for you. I've got 5 children. My oldest is now out of college and working, still living at home right now, but out of college and working. I actually love having him home. He and I watched 2 movies this weekend. We watched The Departed by Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese directed, amazing. And then for some reason, I had it in my crawl to watch Big Trouble in Little China, which is a terrible but fun movie. So we watched both of those. It's a terrible movie, but we watched both of those this weekend. So I really like him living at home. It's a lot of fun. But so, and then I've got a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And yeah, I remember, especially when they were little, people would ask like how it was going. Like there was a season where I had a 3-year-old, 2-year-old, and infant, and then there was a season where I had a 5-year-old, 3-year-old, 2-year-old, and infant, and people would ask like, "Hey, how's parenting going?" And I'd be like, "Well, I really enjoy this time of their life. Like it's really fun. I'm having a good time as a dad." And there would always be that parent that was like, "Just you wait, just you wait. It's going to get so much harder. Oh my gosh." It's going to get so much harder. When they are 10 and they're in school, it's going to be the worst. When they are preteens are awful. Or when they're in high school, oh my gosh, they're going to get it's going to be awful. And I got to tell you, for all those parents out there, I have never had that experience. Every phase of my children's development, I have liked better than the phase before. Parenting just keeps getting better. It's awesome. I love it. It's great. And having children, one of the best decisions I made. But yeah, I act like it was my decision. My wife and I are like super fertile, and our first 3 children were literally surprises. But it's it's really exciting. And I love this stage of life, and I love seeing them go off to do things, have adventures, and then come back to tell us about them. So they all came back at 5 a.m. this morning. This is Sunday that I'm recording this, and it was just a blast hearing their stories and having them laugh together and talk about building these houses. They built 3 houses with a team of people. It was incredible. And I was I'm so excited for them. And it's just great to see them, 2 of them are going off to college here next month, and it's exciting to see them head into that stage of adventure too. So personally, it's been a great week for me. Writing's been a good week. JP and I have a Kickstarter out right now for Nerds. We are producing Nerds Season 2 in like beautiful copies, illustrated copies of Nerds Season 1 on Kickstarter. We're super excited about it. I've been writing Season 2 like crazy to try to finish it in the next month or so, and it is way better than Season 1. And my series always seem to go this way. The future books are way better than the initial books, which is bad because people read the initial book. They're like, "Oh, that's okay." And I'm like, "No, keep going. I promise." And it's like, well, But so anyway, I really liked Nerds Season 1. It was funny. People seem to enjoy it. It's a comedy. And Nerds Season 2 is got way more plot, and it's just a much stronger book. I don't know how else to put it. So I'm pumped about that, and I'm writing through that right now. JP and I co-write, and the way that works is he plots. He gives me like a couple sentences of like, here's what needs to happen in this scene. I write it, and then I send it back to him, and he edits it. And so we have a really great working partnership in that way. I think I mentioned on a couple episodes ago that I finished my second screenplay of the year. My goal this year was to write 4 screenplays. I was co-writing this second one with my friend Sean Paul Murphy. We finished it. Sean is very excited about it. He's super optimistic. He's pretty sure that we are going to make $1 billion because he loves it so much. Now Sean sold screenplays before. Who have never really had any luck selling fiction, I am less optimistic. I'm like, yeah, even if the screenplay is great, you haven't worked with me before. So that I struggle to sell fiction. So anyway, it was really nice to finish it. It was great to work with Sean. I was super excited about it. And I asked him, I was like, so how do we sell a screenplay? And he was like, well, it starts with querying. And I was like, doesn't it always? Because I remember 10 years ago when I wrote my first novel, I asked people like, now what do I do with it? And they're like, it starts with querying. And I was like, oh man, it always does. But thankfully, I am a little bit of a spreadsheet chaos monster. I love spreadsheets, so I love them. I really do. I love them. So I talked about this in depth and like walked through in the bonus episode for the Patreon community this week. But what I did was I used AI to get a list of every movie published in the United States, every movie released in the United States between 2022 and 2020 and today. And then I got the name of the movie, the writer, and the genre. And then I pulled 700 of those movies and their writers, and I went on IMDb Pro, and I listed out all the agents and managers connected with every movie. And then if their email address was publicly listed, I put that in there to start giving me a database of querying. So this week I got like 2/3 of the way through that. I can't do it. I have a day job. I can't do it all day. I wish I could. If I could do it all day, I would have finished that thing in like 3 days. But, the day job pays the bills. So the day job is important. So I did it in my like off time when I wasn't writing Nerds, or, when I'm like sitting at the kitchen table by myself at night after everybody's gone to bed. I'm like, I can put in an hour and a half on this thing. So I'm up to like 400 email addresses, which is great. It's enough to start. It's enough to start. So, so I'll start querying with a log line soon. So I'm excited about that. We'll see how that goes. This is my first time. Now, 10 years ago, when I started writing novels, somebody told me today, they were like, I didn't know this story. I was like, really? I thought I talked about it all the time, but maybe I've been doing this podcast now for 4 years. So maybe I haven't shared this recently. When I started writing, I was in a state of desperation. I'd just been fired from a job. I had 4 children. My wife was pregnant with my 5th. And I was like, I need a job. And what skills do I have in which I can produce income in case nobody hires me? And I was like, the only skill I have is I can write. So I started writing novels with the idea that like, I'm going to make a ton of money on these. And I didn't. And part of that is because at the time I didn't know how to market. Part of that was because I didn't have any money to market with. We were very poor. And people were like, oh, you need to buy an Amazon ad. I'm like, buy an Amazon? Like with what? Do they take blood? I can pay in blood. So anyway, it was a beautiful and difficult season of life. So, but so I started off by querying. Before I even started independent publishing, I was like, somebody told me like, oh, well, what you do is you query agents. And so I remember I built a spreadsheet of like 300 agents' names that I found on the internet with like their query instructions and everything I needed. And I remember I emailed the first 5, and the 5th one said, please don't query anybody else while you query us. And it was like, we'll get back to you within 6 months. And I was like, 6 months? Like, I got to buy diapers, I can't wait 6 months. So that's why I started indie publishing. But I then found out that I wasn't great at marketing. And so I've sold more than the average. I do make money on my books, but it wasn't paying the bills. And so, thankfully I did get a day job that I still have. And that's my story anyway. So it's weird now, 10 years later, to be coming back to querying. It's a weird feeling. Now I'm in a much different place. I'm not like querying to buy diapers. I'm querying because this is exciting, and I have a partner who thinks I'm really good at it. Sean thinks I'm really good at it, so not querying. He hasn't seen me query yet. He thinks I'm good at writing screenplays. He's encouraging. So, it's fun. It's a good time. But anyway, that's my writing update. I'm hoping I outlined the 3rd screenplay I'm writing this year. And so I'm about to dive into it. And I think my pace so far has been 10 weeks. 3 drafts of a screenplay in 10 weeks. I write it, I revise it, and I revise it a 3rd time. So, let's see. As somebody was asking me today, they're like, how do you do that? And I'm like, well, this is all the stuff about writing I enjoy. It's the dialogue. It's minimum movement actions. It's minimum setting. And it's just people talking. It's my favorite part. Character growth, characterization, bringing the personalities out through the dialogue. It's fantastic. And now that I know the format, it makes it a lot easier. Anyway, so that's my writing update. We're talking to Emily today. I do need to warn you before we start the interview. Emily and I, we interacted a lot. She's going to become a regular on the show. She's a friend of the pod now, along with Lindsay and Ed and JP and Laura, coaches, but Tom too. So she's going to be coming back on probably once a quarter to talk to us about publishing, which I'm excited about because I know nothing. So it's great to learn from somebody who has so much history in it. But I should probably warn you, Emily and I, she's come on the show before. She was on the show episode 253. That's her whole history. So if you want to know more about who Emily is, go to 253. I cover her whole history with that. It was last December. Easiest place to find old episodes is on the website. If you hit the podcast button, all of the episodes are listed there. So you can find her old episode there. And there's links. If you click on the episode link, it'll show you like where you can find it. But so Emily and I talked back then, and then we ran into each other again at the Maryland Writers Association, at a meeting at the Maryland Writers Association. We're chatting there. So she and I are becoming friends. I'd like to say we are friends. Emily, we're friends, right? You're listening to this. We're friends. So anyway, all that to say, we got on the phone with each other and we just started chatting. We chatted for an hour before I hit record. So by the time I hit record, I worried that I had like worn her out a little bit. She did great. She was not worn out at all, but I was nervous. I was like, oh no, maybe we should schedule another hour. But so you're coming into a conversation with Emily and I. We've already been talking for an hour, just sharing stories about the industry and like what we've seen, me on the indie side, her on the traditional side, and kind of what we see in the industry. So we were well primed for this conversation. And questions from this conversation you'll find came from the dialoguers. They came from people in the community. 2 ways to join the community. One's through Patreon. The other way is there's a newsletter. It's totally free. I actually ask these questions from the newsletter, not necessarily from the Patreon. But a lot of times the Patreon get questions. Like in a couple of weeks, we'll have Lindsay on, the pitch master, and Patreon will get first shot at dropping their pitches before I ask the newsletter. So, yeah, but you can also sign up for the newsletter on the website. That's where these questions come from. All right, that's enough of me jibber jabbering. Let's get to the conversation with Emily. All right, I hit record. Did I hit record? I hit record. I'm recording. I hit record. And I'm with Emily Barrosse. Emily, you've been on the podcast before, and people should just go listen to that episode if they want to know your full story. Yeah.
It's Barrosse.
Barrosse? Oh, no.
Rhymes with lacrosse.
Oh, no. We've been talking for like an hour, and I totally messed up. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
I just want to stick an E on the end of that. Emily Barrosse. So I'm so sorry, Emily.
No worries.
Okay, so you were on the podcast before. You were the founder of Bold Story Press, a publishing house for women and authors who want to share their stories with the world. I think I got that. Correct me if I got the tagline wrong. And you've been in publishing for 32 years, is your career in publishing. So you've come on to share all of that expertise with us and field some questions to help us navigate the chaos that is publishing a little bit. So let's start with, what are you working on that you're excited about right now?
Well, thank you, Jeff, for having me here. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it is weird to start this conversation over because we have literally been talking for an hour, and
I know.
it's like, yeah, it's like we're gonna pretend like we haven't been. Yeah.
I could talk to you all day long, honestly. I always learn things when I talk to you.
It's terrifying.
And what are we working on? Well, we do have some big news at Bold Story Press. The day that I hung out our sign and said we're in business, we're publishing women only. We want to empower women. We want to teach them how to own their voice and their stories. I started getting manuscripts from men that I loved. Of course.
That's
Murphy's Law.
Yeah, that's how it works.
And each time I had to turn them away and reject them, which broke my heart a little bit. But then about 6 months ago, I received 3 manuscripts from men that I love. And all of a sudden I realized it's time. It's time. Bold Story Press will be 5 years old next month. Okay. And it's time to start a new imprint for men.
I love it.
Male authors, and we're going to be announcing that in the coming weeks. The new press, the new imprint is Xander Press with an X, Xander. I got that name from when my son was about 4 years old. His cousin asked him what his middle name was. And he replied proudly, my name is Alex Xander Barrosse.
Nice.
He thought his middle name was Xander. So I always love that story. And That was so him. He was this bold little kid, full of confidence, even when he was wrong. In fact, in fact, my
Like
family
many
has,
male authors. I'm just kidding.
and like
Sorry.
maybe. In fact, my family has a motto, often wrong, but never in doubt.
That's right. Yeah.
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 Right. So we are starting Xander Press and we're very excited about it. We are looking for men who write stories, fiction or nonfiction, that talk about strong women and
Nice.
and their experience and their stories in the world. They don't have to only be about women, of course, but we are looking for allies. We're
That's
looking
awesome.
for men who love the women in their lives, think they should be powerful, and are writing stories that reflect that.
Yeah. That's great. I love that. That's really
Thanks.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'll link to that in the show notes when this goes live. Try to find that. Yeah, that would be great. Um, okay, anything else you want to share? Anything else going on?
No, we've been growing, at a steady pace.
That's awesome.
And yeah, we really have. And I'm very excited about books that we have coming. We are publishing a lot of memoirs,
Okay.
and we just recently signed Gail Young, who was a former CNN bureau chief in Cairo,
Wow.
and her story
I
is
bet
just
she's got some. Yeah.
fascinating. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so good.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
so yeah, we have a number of books we're really excited about coming out.
Awesome. Um, okay, so I asked the Dialogue Doctor community for questions. Um, and they delivered. So I'm going to read the name of the person in the question. We can talk through it together.
Great.
So this is a question from Terashini. Um, she said, are publishers more likely to accept submissions from agents, or do they equally accept direct submissions? What's the proportion of submissions accepted via agents versus directly from authors? And I know you can't speak for the entire industry. I mean, like, well, let me tell
Well,
you what the industry does. But from your
yeah.
experience, what are
Well,
your thoughts on like going directly to a publisher or going through an agent?
well, when I do try to speak for the whole industry, just remember, often wrong, but never in doubt.
That's right. We're going to do it confidently.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Uh, In my experience, I would say that traditional publishers always use the agents as gatekeepers. I have
Mhm.
never heard of a case of a traditional publisher signing an author that didn't come through an agent.
Mhm.
I think even if you were an acquisition editor's mother, she would put you in touch with an agent in
An
order to
agent
submit.
first.
I
Yeah.
think that is a hard and fast rule when it comes to traditional publishing.
Yeah.
When it comes to indie publishing, we don't deal with agents. We would,
Hmm.
but agents, there have been a couple, but agents don't tend to come to us because literally, an agent agreement is about placing you with a publisher, um, and taking in exchange for their expertise, their network, their connections to that publisher, their ability to negotiate the best deal on your behalf. In exchange for that, you're giving them 15% of the pie, and that's for the life of the book.
Hmm.
So that's a lot.
Yeah.
And
Hopefully.
in our world, in the hybrid world anyway, we are charging up front. And if there is money going that way from the writer to the publisher, having an agent involved is it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
And
Why would you give an agent a portion of your sales if you're already paying something to your publisher?
yeah. And to be clear, just to clarify some terms you used, because I know them because I've heard you speak before, but when we talk trad publisher, we're talking like the big houses.
Yeah,
Like when you think of like this is going to be on a shelf at Barnes and Noble, this is a like, this is stamped with like Zondervan or like one of the large
the big
house
five,
hat
right?
Hachette, like, one of
Yeah.
those. When we're talking hybrid publisher, or even independent publisher, you're talking about mid to small size houses like Bold Press that like have a specific niche usually and are working directly with an author, which is contrasted from an author publishing themselves independently,
That's
which is
right.
like going to KDP and publishing the book. I just wanted, for anybody listening, I just wanted to clarify terms. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So to go back to summarize what you're saying, agent for a big publisher, yes. You've never heard anybody going to like Hachette without having an agent.
Right.
Um, but to work with a, mid-sized publisher like you, probably don't need an agent.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. What's for a mid-sized publisher like you, how does an author find you? How do they like get in contact with you?
I'm very flattered that you're calling me a mid-sized publisher, but truthfully, I am not a mid-sized publisher. I am a small publisher. And how do they submit? They usually, so we do a free webinar every month where we
Mm,
talk about the process of book publishing and really focus on what the different business models are for traditional publishers versus self-publishing
mm,
versus indie publishing, and why in some cases, would a writer be paying the publisher? Why does the trade publisher only give you 10% of the profits?
mm,
What the business model looks like. And then we talk about the mechanics and the sort of the back end of how a book is made. We can walk you through the process that our authors go through with designing covers, uh, developmental editing, copy editing, proofreading, composition, etc. Because if you're going to publish a book, you're going to spend at least a year and probably more like 3 to 5 years writing your content, researching agents,
mm,
researching publishers. The more you know about the process and about your options, the better success you will have. And so that's what this 1 hour webinar is all about. And that has turned out to be the way we've met most of our authors. They've come
mm.
to us from those webinars.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay. Anything else to say about that one before we move on to question
Mm-mm.
number two? Okay.
No.
Question number two is from Claude. This is a real Claude, not the AI Claude. From Claude. Claude says, I'm old. What timeline can I expect with a traditional publisher or a smaller mid-house publisher?
Okay. Well, you go, Claude. I'm old too, and I started a publishing house just 5 years ago. So, what kind of timeline? I would say the typical timeline for our books is it usually takes us 6 months to take a book from signing to the ARC, to
Hmm.
the advanced reader copy. And so that means that, we do all of the editing, developmental editing, copy editing, proofreading. We typeset the book. We assign ISBNs, we
Mm,
do all of the back office work, and we get those files as clean as we possibly can. We stop, we put a banner on the front that says advanced reader copy, and then we decide what the publication date is with our author. Do they want 3 months to promote the book, or do they want 6 months to promote the book? So generally speaking, our books are published. They could be published as fast as 6 months. And depending on how much promotion time you build in, it could be more like 12 months.
hmm. Nice. Now, if they're going with a like, let's say the dream happens and they get an agent at it. Let's say they go to a conference, they get an agent, and the agent's like, I'm going to try to sell your book. What's the timeline from that to a published book?
Okay, so that almost certainly is a different scenario if you're going with a mid-size or large publisher because they sign for lists. And once that list is full, they close that list down and they move on to the next year. And so many publishers are signing for 2027 right now, and
Mm,
beyond. And so you work may not even start on your book for a full year if you were signed
interesting.
for the summer 2027 list.
I didn't know that. That's
They're
really
not,
interesting.
Yeah, they're not starting work on your book for a little while. So,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so they'll buy if like let's say lightning strikes and they do buy your book, it might get held just for a year, just
Could
depending
be.
on where you are in their production schedule.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, question three. This one's from Mary. Mary says, "Hi, Emily. I've had the opportunity to listen to you speak, and I've learned so much about what you've shared. I once worked with an editor who took over my work. By the time they were finished, I found myself saying, 'It's no longer my story, but it's theirs.' I worried that it's going to happen again if I'm successful in selling my book to an agent or a small to mid-sized publisher. If an author is adamant about not wanting to change their story in any way, should they be seeking a traditional publisher or should they publish the book on their own? What are your thoughts?"
This is an excellent question. If they are adamant about no changes being made to their manuscript, they should self-publish.
Yeah.
Uh, because everybody in publishing is geared toward producing the best possible book that they can publish and 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 measure success by book sales, right?
Yeah.
So if your book is not appropriate for the genre or well written or there could be any one of a number of things that you're asked to change in a manuscript, the publisher you signed with is expert on those markets, and you really what you're paying for is their expertise. And
Mhm.
so if a publisher tells you you need to change the story in the following ways or else your book isn't going to sell, then you really want to listen to them
Yeah.
or publish it yourself. Um, usually usually you're having that conversation with an acquisitions editor or a publisher,
Mm.
not with the developmental editor alone. And sometimes editors can be inappropriate in taking on too much and taking over the author's story too much. And when that happens, you definitely should raise the question and have that conversation with the editor and the publisher. But if if they've identified something that they think is going to prevent your book from being successful and you're unwilling to change it, uh, then chances are good they'll release you from your contract.
Mhm.
If it's a traditional publisher, you've signed over your rights, your copyrights, and they can do what they choose to do with your book. It is a little unusual for a traditional publisher to change a book that an author strongly objects to publish. Probably they would release you instead.
Mhm.
And certainly as a small publisher, I've had two cases in the first few years where we read just three chapters to make a publishing decision because
Mm.
there's no way we can read the whole manuscript, with all of the manuscripts we receive.
Yeah.
And just sometimes, it's a gamble, but we figure that three chapters will certainly tell us if there are issues with the writing. They'll tell us about the quality of writing.
Mhm.
Uh, so it's enough to go on to offer a publishing contract. But sometimes when we get later into the story, we'll find issues with the plot or even we had a case where we felt that there was inappropriate sexual material in a book, and
Mm.
it wasn't what we want our press to stand for. It's not the kind of content we wanted to publish. And the author didn't want to take it out. And so we agreed to disagree and we gave them back all the money that hadn't already been spent and they went on their way and found another publisher. So you should expect some change because you're working with experts. But um, but yeah, if your story's being taken over by an editor, you should challenge that, and find out what's going on there.
Yeah, and I can speak to that a little bit because I do a lot of book editing. Um, And one way to judge, I think an important way to judge an editor is you should always have a conversation with them before you pay them money,
Yeah.
unless you know them already. Like I have some people that are like, Jeff, I just want, like, we don't need to talk. This is my book. I know you, like, I've listened to you for 200 hours. I know you, like, this is what I want. So there is like, it's not always, but if I'm dealing with somebody new, I always talk to them first. And if an editor, especially a developmental editor, if one of their first questions isn't, what do you want from this book? What do you love about this book? What do you want this book to do? What do you want this book to say? If that's not one of their first questions, I don't know that you should work with them. Like, just to be honest, as somebody who's done a ton of developmental editing, worked with over 200 authors now, that's the first question a developmental editor should always ask you. Because I think anybody that's plugging your book into a formula isn't gonna help you in the long run. Like
Right.
especially if you're not, now if you're like, oh, my goal is to write a cozy mystery that aligns with all the cozy mystery tropes, then yeah, you're plugging that book into a formula. But if you're like, I'm writing the book of my heart, which I know, Mary, I know the one asking this, if you're writing the book of your heart, the first question an editor should ask you is, what do you want this book to do? How do you want it to feel? What do you want it to look like? Like, that's all, not
Yeah.
just for, I think there's also some interesting things here about, like, also valuing your experience as a person. Like, it's a great book, The Anti-Racist Workshop was a great book I read with JP, one of our other coaches, last year, that really talks about how, like, look, in order, if you want a marginalized voice to be valued, that's the first question you have to ask a marginalized voice. What do you want out of this work? What do you want this to do? What do you want this to say? How can I come alongside you to help you see what you want from this story, as opposed to applying the editor's ideas of what good is, right? Like, I think, anyway, that's my rant about finding
Well,
editors.
there's um you're absolutely right. It depends so much on what you want your experience to be and what relationship you want to have with your publisher. A trade publisher, I mean, all publishers are
Yeah,
business.
I'm talking about finding an editor before you've ever gone to an agent. Because a lot of times people come to me before they're even going to agents. They're like, hey, I need
Oh,
help
got it.
or they'll go to an agent and an agent's like, this is broken in these ways. Go get somebody to help you. And they'll come to me with the manuscript and be like, hey, here's my manuscript. Can you help me get this ready to go back to a publisher or go back to agents?
Got it. Got
And
it.
that's what I'm talking about, is like an independent editor that you're hiring just to look at your work should always ask you the question, what do you want from
Yeah,
this? Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
I wasn't talking about, like, because by the time, like you're saying, like, you're with a publisher, that's a team sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've now entered a team. You've gone
Yeah.
seeking a team to help you
Yeah.
produce this book, and you're
Yeah.
now part of a team. You don't necessarily own that book, as like, they don't work for you. You're on a team with them. But like, when you
Right.
hire somebody like me, I actually work for you. My
Right.
my first question should be, what are we working
Right.
on?
Yeah.
Not just like,
Yeah.
here's how I'm gonna fix it. Like, yeah, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Totally.
didn't mean to contradict your answer. I meant to add to it. It's like, hey,
No, no,
yeah,
you're totally right. That
yeah.
is a very different story.
Mm.
Because at that, when you're hiring someone before you start trying to sell the book,
Hmm.
then you're right. They work for you and you have a specific, um, you want them to achieve certain work for you. And
Yeah.
hopefully the editor is asking that and they're delivering on that.
But
So
is that
if
as
they
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, if they try and take control of the book, it's inappropriate. Yeah.
Well, on behalf of editors, I can say I don't make my full-time living on editing. I have a full-time job, and this is something I do on the side. I do know editors that make their full-time living on editing,
Yeah.
and there's a speed to it. There is a, like, hey, I can't necessarily sit with every author and craft the book of their dreams. So
Right.
if you hire me, you're getting these things. And editors will tell you that up front. They'll let you know, like, here's what I do. Here's what I do well. Here's what I'm going to apply to your book. These are the other books I've worked on. I'm going to make your book look like this one. Like that's like, but so if you're going to like Fiverr to hire a developmental editor, look at what they've worked on before, and that's probably what they're going to edit your book to look like. And then ask and make sure they always ask you, what do you want out of this book? Like,
Yep.
what's your dream here? Yeah.
Yep.
Um, any other thoughts on that? On like working as a
Oh,
team or any advice for authors who are nervous about working with a publisher and like turning their work over to other people?
I've had usually my experience with authors is that they heave this big sigh of relief because
Mm,
they feel like, in many cases, the authors feel so vulnerable about putting their story out into the world. I had one author, she was just so anxious
mm,
about it. And saying, if someone criticizes my book, it lives on the internet forever. And that is hard. And so when you finally are part of a team and you have a partner in your editor,
mm,
this is someone whose reputation is also, contingent on the success and the quality of your book. We would never allow an author to be embarrassed by content, in
mm.
a manuscript.
Yeah.
That's what that's what we do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there's a comfort that comes from knowing that you're working with people who know how to do this and would never let you be embarrassed,
Mm,
in front of the market.
yeah. 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 Okay. Next question. Let's hit the next one. Question from Deb. What's the most important thing to include in a agent query, or I would say she's also talking about like querying you, when writing a memoir?
Boy, if I had a nickel for the number of times I've received this question, I wish I had an easy answer.
Mm,
I will tell you that you have, I think, a paragraph, um, and that most agents, because of the volume of letters they receive, if you don't grab them, if you don't hook them in that first paragraph, you will not, um, they won't read past that. They won't
mm,
read the rest of the letter. It goes into the reject pile. And so they don't need to know your biography. They actually really don't care so much about your biography unless it pertains to the story, in the sense that if you're writing a book about cancer and you're a nurse, that's useful to know.
mm,
But otherwise, that in that first paragraph, you're talking about the genre for which you are writing, um, the hook for your story,
mm,
and if you can, some little zinger, that both grabs their attention and places the book squarely in a part of the market so they can understand it. And I was giving a talk last week and I had an agent on, and she gave this example, and I wish I could remember it exactly. But basically, she said, I received 46 letters today. It was like 2 o'clock.
mm,
And I did read the first paragraph of all 46. I read the full letter of three of the
mm,
letters. And so, and one of those letters said, this book is um, explained the niche, explained the genre very clearly, and then used an example of, think Ted Lasso marries, and I forget who the second person was, but it was so perfect. When you heard it, you thought, oh yeah, I get it.
yeah.
So think about, some clever way of helping the reader, in this
Mm,
case, the agent, place your book in the market. And
nice.
do that in that first paragraph. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great advice. Um, okay. Next question from Kathleen. This is a two-parter. So she's got some build up and then a two-parter. It seems that it's hard to get an agent to look at a story that doesn't follow current trends in sales. I know publishers need to recoup their expenses, but surely there's a market for a large variety of genres. I'm always thrilled when a book like The Seven and a Half Deaths of Elvin Hardcastle gives me something completely different and a thought-provoking read. Yes, I can enjoy a cozy mystery, but the 15 First Lives of Harry August is much more enjoyable a read and stays with the reader longer. So, first question, is the perception that agents, and I'm going to add in their publishers, like hybrid publishers, only look to current trends true?
I would say that, well, I can't really speak for agents because,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's fair.
I'm not an agent, and but in my experience, they are very heavily influenced by trends.
Mhm.
And truthfully, most of that information comes from authors who've received rejections and why. Um, in indie publishing, in my experience, indie publishers are more concerned with the quality of the manuscript and the
Mhm.
staying power. So we don't tend to sign as many books that are written to template.
Mhm.
We're looking for good stories that are well told,
Yeah.
and will stand the test of time.
Yeah. 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 You're not looking to just add to the large volume of catalog that you have. You're
Mm-mm.
looking for individual books that matter to
Right,
people. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I think that's so. Second part of her question, if I'm writing outside of a trail sales trend, writing the book of my heart, what should I do to get a publisher to see value in my work? And she means hybrid publishers too. Like if she can't say to you, this book is this meets this, she's like, I don't even know how this book, how does she get your attention?
Um, well, the cover letter is always critical.
Hmm.
It's the way that you generate any kind of interest at all, or the way that you lose them,
Yeah.
lose your editor or publisher. So I like being told about the comps,
Hmm.
in that letter. I like to know where the author places her book in the market. Um, and I can tell from the cover letter whether the author can write, obviously.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'm surprised, but not usually. So spending the time on that letter, doing the research about the publishers you're sending to, understanding what kinds of things they publish. Are they really publishers who are looking for good books that are well told, or um, are they looking for the books that are more template written? All of those things, the language in your query letter is going to hook them.
Yeah. Would you say what's more important on on like a sliding scale? On one end would be the author's passion about the work. So if they're going to write you a query letter, they're like, this is how passionate I am about this novel, and this is why I'm writing it. On the other end, and this is, Emily, I'm warning you, this is on a fair scale. On the other end is the author's knowledge of craft and like demonstrate ability in that query letter that I know what I'm doing. What's more important to you?
Oh, that's
I told you it wasn't
that's
fair.
that's hard. Well, you're not saying the first choice is passionate but can't write.
No, I'm
Okay.
saying they're going to bring their book to you.
Yeah.
And we're talking about like a writer like Kathleen, who's like, I'm writing a weird book, and this book is what I want to read. It's the book of my heart. I've thought about this forever. Let's say they're a new Mitchner, and they're like, I'm bringing you a story of 5 generations of family that have lived. And I can't think of a trend that's like, you know what we're looking for? We're looking for a 5,000
Generation
page
saga.
book on 5,000. But they're like, I am so passionate about this. And I've studied, I've done my work. I can tell you who the writing is like. This is like Toni Morrison in these ways. It's not a trend, but I can tell you like this is where the craft is. What's more important in that letter for you to hear?
Oh,
This is where the
passion.
craft
No
is, or this is
question.
okay.
No
Passion.
question.
Okay.
Yes. Well, I mean, think about storytelling. Who do you want to listen to more? The person that's telling their story with heart and passion and or the person who's more clinical, and
Yeah.
more no, I want passion. I think
Okay.
passion that you have to have passion to be a good writer.
Yeah. Why are you passionate about this?
Yeah.
Is it more important to sell to a publisher like you? Is it more important to sell yourself as a writer or to sell that individual work?
I would say it's more important to sell the individual work.
Okay.
And
That's all.
and especially because we deal with so many authors who are first-time writers.
Yeah.
If you have, hugely successful books in your background, of course, that would be useful to know.
If you're like, hey, 5 years ago I won the Pulitzer, that's a
Yeah,
good thing to put in
yeah, that would be good.
maybe lead with
That
that.
that, that could be
Yeah.
the hook. But
So funny.
but we don't have that expectation,
Yeah.
with going into it. And yeah, I want to know. I want to know about the story. For me, it's all about the story.
Yeah.
In some ways, we are fortunate enough to be along for the ride, but it is the story that is important, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think to speak in the defense of the like trends and this meets that, because I think a lot of times as authors we view this as nefarious, as like this is people who only care about money and don't care about books. But I don't think that's true. I think part of what you said earlier that I just want to highlight is the mass volume of people trying to get a hybrid publisher's or an agent's attention. A lot of times the trends and comps are a way of like, oh, I can just quickly engage with this, as opposed to having to read a full letter of your heart, if
Right.
that makes sense.
And
Yeah.
I think agents do care about, do you know what you're doing?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's, even more important for them and the traditional publishers. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Anything else you want to add to that one before I move on to I don't want to rush you on to the next one. Okay. Next question. This is from Heather. And this is another multi-parter. My questions are about the changing landscape of publishing in general and how traditional, and I think hybrid publishers go in there too, are pivoting. There are lots of formerly independent authors who have received hybrid contracts due to their success. So their ebook remains theirs, but paperbacks and hardbacks are recovered and made available traditionally. How is this affecting decisions? Oh, how is this affecting how decisions are made when writers query? Is it opening up more opportunities for writers or less? And how much influence are things like book talk having on these decisions?
Um, I don't feel qualified to answer this.
It's totally fair.
Yeah, she's talking about a book that's self-published or independently published that
She's
has
saying
wild
like
success.
I self-published my ebook. It sold really well. And now a hybrid publisher or a trad publisher is going to say, hey, give us the rights to the paperback and hardback so we can sell those individual rights. And I can say that in amongst author conversations, there's a lot of conversation about splitting rights like that. Can I sell? So let me ask it to you that way. As a hybrid publisher, is that a deal you'd be interested in? If somebody was like, hey, I've already put the ebook version on the market. The ebook did very well. I'd now like to work with you to put out the paperback and hardback. Is that something you'd engage with?
Probably not, because um, so much of the value of what we do is in the creation part.
Mhm.
It's in the quality of the content part. And if you've already published the ebook, your content's out there. You've published your book. You're
Yeah.
looking for a distributor, really, right?
Hmm.
Um, we aren't the right house then, because you'd be paying for our expertise, but you wouldn't need it so much.
Yeah. I do
Yeah.
think that if you're, well, so my question back to the question is, Heather, you know where to find me. We can actually talk about this if you want to. Uh, I wonder if somebody is selling that much that they've piqued a trad publisher's attention. I would wonder what the value is of going with a trad publisher at that point. Because if I've successfully marketed and sold an ebook that it's getting a trad publisher's attention, I don't know what I need with a trad publisher. Right?
Yeah.
Like I might go get like if and I have heard people be like, well, you have to be trad published to get into movies, but I don't actually think that's true. I would look for a literary talent agent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like take your book and take it to movies. I wouldn't go to a trad publisher. I'd look for a literary talent agent. And you can find them on IMDb. You just go IMDb search literary talent agent, it'll come up. So yeah.
Well, and at the
Um,
very least, if you did decide to go with a traditional publisher or trad publisher,
mhm.
um, you would want to negotiate an agreement that's very different from the agreement they're giving most authors.
Yeah.
Already, there's no risk now
There's
for
no
them.
risk for them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the
Um,
10% royalty, I don't think so.
yeah. Okay, last question from Heather. Her understanding is that it can get a couple years to get a traditionally published novel out into the wild, with the ability for independent authors, and she means self-publishers, to release more rapidly. Is the traditional process shortening to meet reader demands and expectations, especially as their favorite authors move to independent or hybrid to receive exclusive contracts for future work? So, do you feel a stress, knowing that like somebody could self-publish a book a week, a book a day? Do you feel stress as a hybrid publisher to get books out faster?
No, because that's not the kind of publishing we're doing.
Yeah.
Um, we're not racing the trend or uh, publishing the templated work.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons my team and most people on my team have 30 years of experience in traditional publishing. One of the reasons this is such a I don't want it to sound too sappy, but it is kind of a joy for us, this work
Yeah.
we're doing now, because all of our lives we worked for major publishers and we had huge lists. When I was editor in chief, I was publishing 500 books a year. When I was the acquisitions editor, I had, 100 books on my list. I could never spend as much time as I've wanted to on any given title.
Mm,
And to be able to do that now, and we spend exactly as much time as every book needs, is such a treat for us and such a joy that it's just a different experience than we've ever had. And it would certainly be a different experience than any author has ever had. And
mhm.
I have an author who published with Random House and with another major trade publisher, and she said, I've never had an experience like this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. But it's a very different thing than like, hey, we want to chase this, be number one ranked on Amazon and chase this trend. That's not what you're doing.
that's
So
not
the speed of that doesn't impact,
mm,
yeah, your
that's
work.
not our strategy.
Yeah. Okay. This one's from Carol. And Emily, let me preface this for you. Uh, there is a rumor in author world that publishers are and hybrid publishers and trad publishers are laying off all their acquisition editors. They're laying off all of their developmental editors, and they're just using AI to fill those roles. And they're like not reading query letters anymore. They're just training an AI to read all their query letters. So this next question comes from that rumor. How are publishers situating AI within their operations? Is AI being used as add-on labor with oversight responsibility delegated to one individual or role? Or are staff receiving training and expected to become familiar with AI? How have you seen AI impact from a publisher end?
I don't doubt that there are publishers who are employing that strategy. And it's a different business model, right?
Mhm.
You're publishing, you're going to sign or produce or publish content as quickly as you can to a templated model. Quality is not as important. The thinking about will the story stay with you, not on the table. You're publishing to template, and speed is the name of the game. Well,
Mhm.
then of course you're going to use AI.
Yeah.
Um, as long as there are publishers who have that strategy, there will be other publishers who have the strategy of not all readers want to read that stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of readers are more discriminating. They want quality writing. They want story that's well thought through
Hmm.
with little anecdotes and, little detours that make me think with, turns of phrase that make me stop and reread it. That is part of the fun of reading for them, and
Yeah.
AI can't deliver that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like distinguishing readers. You and I were talking about before we hit record. My wife is one of those. She reads 3 books a year. She wants those books to be excellent. She
Yeah.
doesn't like and she wants them to be unique and she wants them to be creative and she wants them to be like her emotional journey for the year. That's what she's looking for. So
Wow. Yeah.
she doesn't want a trend book, right? Like she wants a book that is gonna like make her feel something in a unique way. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of publishers out there like you doing that kind of work. And that's a different approach to I can't see that publisher being like, all right, I'm going to fire all my staff and you say hi to create
Yeah.
that.
And
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that should be a concern for writers who are writing that content or producing that content at that speed.
Hmm. Yeah.
But it's not in my world. I mean, of course we've been testing AI for proofreading and copy editing, and so far we've decided that it's not good enough yet to replace
Hmm.
people. And
Yeah.
so we're going to continue, proofreading, copy editing with editors we hire. But
Nice.
yeah, and we uh, we have not signed any authors that have used AI heavily that we are aware of. It's not the kind of publishing we want to do.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one. I've kept you way over time, so I'm going to move on to the next last
I
question.
love talking to you, Jeff.
Thanks, Emily. Okay, question from Malcolm. Last time you were on the podcast, you mentioned Bold Story Press charges for writers a fee up front. As an indie author, we hear repeatedly, if you're paying to be published, it's a scam. I believe that's a remnant left over from the days when you either went all in with a traditional publisher who paid in advance or all in on self-publishing where the author fronted all the costs and did all the work. We all know that publishing, even independent publishing, isn't free. It takes something to edit, format, design covers, set up accounts on the publishing platforms, etc. If someone is considering a hybrid press today, are there telltale clues that we can use to separate out the legit small publishing houses from those that are trying to scam authors?
Wow, what a thoughtful question.
And
Um,
I'll echo Malcolm here. This is a thing that goes around. This is a thing that people say. If you have to pay somebody to work on your book, it's a scam. And I agree with him that it's kind of a holdover
yeah,
from a different time.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
I've seen that many times on Reddit.
yeah,
You know, these folks with absolute certainty telling you that you're being scammed. You're being scammed. And I think, I
yeah.
mean,
Confidence is no doubt. Yeah.
yeah, it's first of all, it's not that simple. And yes, all of the scenarios here involve businesses, right? So publishing is a business, whether you're traditional or uh, indie or hybrid. And traditional publishers, I often felt like traditional publishing was like a form of gambling. because we would sign, let's say we signed 300 books a year. Well, we knew with certainty that 20% of that list was going to make their numbers or exceed their numbers, their sales numbers, and the other 80% would not make their numbers.
Mm,
So the 20% of books underwrote the whole list.
yeah.
That's the reality of
You're
traditional
you're
publishing.
playing the slots. Yeah.
Yeah, you're playing slots.
You're pulling
Exactly.
that lever. It's got to hit cherries at some point. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's why you get 10%. That's why they keep 90% of the royalty. Um, so with hybrid publishers and indie publishers, you're looking for a different experience, I hope, in addition to wanting to get your book published. I hope the value of publishing with an independent publisher or a hybrid publisher is in part for you, the quality of the people you'll be working with, because if it's not, then I think you should self-publish. Self-publishing, there's enough content on Google for anybody with half a brain to be able to self-publish. I mean,
100%.
it's not too hard to learn how to format the files and
Yeah.
upload them to KDP
As
and
somebody who self-publishes, I'd say it's probably too easy.
right,
It's
right,
like, I
right.
still wonder who allows me to do this. This feels like it's too easy. Somebody should stop me. Yeah.
I know, I know. So, I heard this story once about the woman who was really struggling with a decision to publish with a hybrid press. And, when you add up what they were charging and what the marketing with the promotion was going to cost, the cost was going to be something like $25,000. And she was agonizing over this decision because she said, no way am I going to recover that investment. No way would we ever sell enough books to, make a profit here. How can I justify this? That I can't do that. And then her husband went out and bought a Ferrari. And she said, okay, okay then.
Yeah.
I'm publishing my book.
So
And
funny.
it's because it became clear to her that the writing of this book gave her joy.
Yeah.
And working with a professional publishing team who will be your team and explain to you the process as you are working through it and be your biggest advocate and help you produce something that you can be extraordinarily proud of, that has value and gives you joy. And the idea that you will put something into the world, something very personal, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, that yes, could be criticized, and yes, it could live on the internet forever, as some of my authors worry about. More likely, it will be read by some number of people, whether that's 100 or 1,000 or 2,000, and you will have an impact on that person's life. Maybe it'll be a small impact. Maybe it's just you entertained them, or
Yeah.
you brought them along on a story that, moved them in some way. But if it's nonfiction or a memoir, maybe you'll have a more profound impact. And that gives authors joy. And that makes it all feel worthwhile. As I tell all my authors, if you can't afford to do this, if you're doing it on a credit card, don't do it. It's
Mhm.
too risky, and you don't know if you will recover that money. But if you can afford to do this, and these three things give you joy, then do it. Publish your book. Invest the money.
Yeah. And I think what I hear you saying on the other end of that to kind of fill out Malcolm's question, if you're talking to a hybrid publisher and they're in a hurry and they're racing you to do things and they're rushing you through a system or a formula, you may not be dealing with the right person.
Well, in addition to that answer, because I completely agree with that answer, I would say if decision maker at the publisher isn't willing to talk to you
Mm.
and have a conversation with you and develop a relationship with you that's important to the publishing house, it would give me pause.
If they're just running you through forms, if they're like, fill
And
this out, give us this
yeah,
check, we'll send you this, we'll do
yeah,
this. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's all. Um, Anytime if I think what you're saying is very true, that self-publishing is, you can even pay, like Tom Holbrook comes on all the time. He's a self-publishing coach. He'll coach you through it. And he's,
yeah,
done it 1,000 times, and he'll coach you through how to do it too. Like, so if somebody is racing you through this thing and not generating the experience that you're hoping for, that's not why you hybrid publish. If you're looking for speed, self-publish. Like if you're looking for speed and cheap, self-publish. If you're looking for to put the book of your dreams into the world and you want a team of experts, they should treat you as such, is what I hear
yeah.
you saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because as I said to you earlier, you're part of what you're investing in is the experience, is the
Mhm.
relationship, is the idea that people with so much expertise become as invested in the success of your book as you are. All of a sudden you have a team, and writing is a lonely endeavor, and to have a team who whose mission in life is to never let their author be embarrassed by something in their content, whose
Mhm.
mission in life is to partner with you to make your writing as successful as they possibly can. That feels good after two
Yeah.
years of writing alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that's all of our questions. Emily, any final thoughts or last words to the community?
Oh, keep writing. I mean, I know there are so many stories out there. I know there are writers who are good writers who have great stories to tell, that sometimes get discouraged and
Mm,
think, why bother? I think that if you feel compelled to write, if you have a story you feel compelled to share, there's a reason for that. The universe wants that story shared. So don't give up, and believe that it will all turn out, to the best, with the best ending, and keep writing and take your time, do your research, and find the right partner to publish with.
that's beautifully said. I know people can find you at boldstorypress.com. Is there
Right.
anywhere else people should come look for you online?
Um, Nope, that's it. Emily at
Okay.
boldstorypress.com. I'd love to hear from you if you have a manuscript. Malcolm, I particularly liked your question. If you'd like to get in touch, please do.
He's got a fantastic series of children's books coming, like YA
Oh, does he?
books. He does, yeah. They're really good. I've worked on
Cool.
a couple scenes with him, and they're fantastic. Um,
Cool.
yeah. Uh,
Wonderful.
all right. Well, thanks, Emily. I'm going to hit stop on record, and you and I can talk a little bit more.
Okay.
Thank you for coming on.
Ah, my pleasure.